Welcome to Critical Café,
Join us as we chat about the latest episode,
the campaign as a whole, and Critical Role in general.
all while we partake in a delicious cup of coffee. So grab yourself a tasty beverage
Settle into your favorite cozy spot.
and get ready for a little geek philosophy. Welcome to Critical Cafe. Let me do a little adjustment on the sound here because I'm coming in hot as usual. So, so welcome to Critical Cafe, where we talk about all things Critical Role. We're going to get caught up on the last couple episodes of Campaign 3 this time. So my name's Brian, and I've got Crystal with me, as always. So just to kick things off, just to let you know, if you're new to the channel, we talk about all things D&D and Critical Role and everything geekdom. So feel free to subscribe if you're catching us for the first time, so you won't miss out on any of the future episodes. Also, if you want to check the description box below, if you want to support the channel, you can always go and buy us a cup of coffee. We love that if you'd like to do that. If not, no worries. Just subscribing and commenting and being a part of the conversation is always helpful. We're going to jump into it because we know this is Thursday and we know what that means. So we have to get through 2 episodes.
We have a schedule to keep.
That's right. We're going to do this before showtime. So we're going to jump right in. Just real quick before we go in, one of the big reasons that we were out of touch for the last week is we've had a lot of storms in the area. And the last couple of times we tried to go live during this, we have lost power. And that was last week. But outside of our window right now, we're hearing thunder again. So we're supposed to have a big storm. If you lose us during broadcast, we're okay. We just might have lost power in our area. So just let you know.
Florida's summertime.
That's right. And I know other areas of the country are going through similar stuff now. I know other parts of the world, depending on where you're watching, are also going through some crazy things. So just bear with us. But let's jump in. Let's head over to the critical recap. Always done by Danny Carr. She does an amazing job at putting this together, and we like to wait until she puts these out, even on the weeks that we're up to date, because we want to make sure that everybody's had a chance to watch. I know there's the thunder, as if they heard me. The Storm Lord is listening.
Yes, so, we're getting our own ambiance, background music.
So if you didn't catch, we're on Campaign 3, Episode 61, Crisis of Faith is where we're going to start. And at the beginning here, so as tagged by Danny, acceleration. So I'm not going to read everything, but I want to go through chunks of each one of these paragraphs to make sure that we're all caught up. So they've had a battle at that temple, at the Dawnfather's temple, last time we were checking in. And they had the battle with the guards, and Elder Abedina summoned the Earth Guardian, and we've got like the Guardian of Faith that showed up. So basically you got this Earth Guardian, we've got an angel basically fighting, you've got the Judicator in there, who is actually focusing on Denise during this for the most part. So there's a lot going on.
And then the demon too, right? At a certain point.
That's right. Yeah, we do. At a certain point, we do have that as well, because we have the soldiers that were, poisoned with the laxative, that were also having that issue, which then caused them to, slow down their roll a little bit. And then Bordor collected the blood needed for that spell, that greater demon spell that they are summoning. And then, so they've got this big battle going on. So, then this is where the Dawnborn angel appears. So, got a lot of stuff happening, and orders them to leave or be judged. So they use fiery castigation to trying to get Orem to repent. And then he's restrained in these burning gold chains. And then Prism is collecting the blood from Bordor and gets that Bargura up to like fight the angel. It was like basically, there's angels and demons battling everywhere. It's crazy.
And then earth elementals too. So it's like all aspects of faith.
Yeah, it's basically a big title of a Dan Brown novel here. Like we're having it going on in the middle of this. So Yeah, they're starting off hot during this because they kind of ended with that cliffhanger of this is where it's going. So yeah, what are the thoughts about the way this whole thing started?
Well, I thought everything was great until the angel showed up. And then I was like, oh shit.
Yeah,
We now have an angel. And this is not like I thought, okay, all right, it's getting a little crazy,
yep,
especially knowing that she had to have Prism had to have the blood of a recently deceased person to summon the Bulgura, because it was the contingency plan was they're going to get in
yeah,
there, it's going to take care of the Judicator, I mean, but then Abedina gets in, she summons a big guardian, then chaos ensues. This angel shows up and he's trying to castigate. And it was like, I really actually felt in that first couple of moments of the angel showing up that they were done.
yeah. It did feel like that, and it also like looking back at it, you've got um, the celestial beings like the angel, you've got the demon that showed up, but then you also have this primal elemental thing, which is
Mm-hmm.
basically almost
Adolin
like
or whatever.
yeah, but this is like sort of an analogy for what's going on with the whole discussion and everything that's happening, right? Like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
fact of the gods and the primal forces of the world and all that stuff sort of came together in the middle of that temple, in the Dawnfather temple. It was
Right.
really a exciting way to start off the episode, but also, like you said, makes you feel like, man, how's this going to turn out? Especially knowing what the other
Right.
group went through and the no resurrection magic and all that
Right.
stuff, which they don't
And
know
it,
about yet.
yeah, and it got out of hand because I think Abedina's thought process was that they weren't going to go in and murder a bunch of people. Like
Right.
I remember at one point Matt as her was like, this wasn't really the plan, but okay. Especially
Yeah.
once they started like hounding the angel. So it was
Yeah.
wild.
It really was. All right, let's keep going a little further. Have to pardon me for having to jump back and forth a little bit because I want to make sure that we're not missing anything. Um, all right, enough. So the rest of the fight is focused on that angel, the Dawnfather's angel, and Abedina loses concentration on the Earth Guardian, but the Eidolons continue their connection with the Elemental, so it keeps going. Ashton in Primordial, in the language Primordial, asks the Earth Guardian to toss them up, and they throw Ashton into the air so they can attack the angel. So they do the fastball special for those of you comic book fans where Colossus throws Wolverine. They just did it with Ashton being thrown, which I thought was pretty cool. And but it's the Bulgura that is the one that brings the angel down, and Bordor comes up and cradles their head, and the angel looks at them or him in pity, and then Bordor kisses his head and whispers, "Enough." And then he casts Inflict Wounds, and the angel dies. That was basically the how do you want to do this moment, but it just happened that way, which had a huge impact on the group, I think. Earth Guardian grabs the demon, and then the two crumble away. Both are gone. A second Judicator approaches the temple, but then leaves, seeing all the stuff that's happening. The dead Judicator's mask is fused to their face. They tried to pull it off, but they couldn't. And then the villagers round up all the guards, and Abedina taps into the power of the Eidolons and uses the vines to crush the temple. I mentioned something here. I was a little worried that they weren't really picking up what Matt was throwing down about him taking down the temple. But anyway, the Prism and Ashton throw out the money that was collected into the portable hole, and then Laudna and Denise are kind of keeping their eye on Abedina. She brings the temple to rubble. Villagers are happy about that. Abedina speaks with the guards and allows them to either leave or pay their debts. They choose to leave, except for one teenager who apologizes and will have chances to atone. So, yeah, lots of stuff happening there. Thoughts on how the battle ended up?
Well, I already told you I'm suspicious of Bordor. I don't necessarily think he's a bad person or he's going to turn into being a baddie or whatever, but it seems awful convenient that he is as powerful as he is, and I don't know, when he's fighting, he's different, you know. So I feel like, yes, I feel like some of it might be, you know, from like a meta perspective. It might
Yeah.
be, um, oh gosh, what's his name? The guy himself, the player himself, trying to do the best he
Yeah.
can. But it comes across like, okay, is this guy really just a shepherd somewhere who, you know, with his backstory? I don't know. It was interesting that he got the killing blow and kissed him on the forehead and just whispered enough to him. Like, is he a reincarnated god? Like, I don't know. I'm I'm a little
So
suspicious of him.
yeah, so there is that Utkarsh is the player.
Yes,
So
Utkarsh. Sorry,
um,
sorry, Utkarsh.
so there is this theory, and I don't know if we mentioned it on the show or not. You and I were talking about it a little bit. There's this theory kind of going around. Most of you may already know if you follow other Critical Role things on Reddit or Twitch or whatever, or Twitter. But there's a theory that he is a dog that transformed, which I think it was kind of crazy. But the more I'm hearing about it, other channels have brought this up too. Lubofin, I think, or I'm remembering the channel name wrong, but she's doing a great job with all her Critical Role stuff. I'll put a link in the description to go check out her stuff. She's amazing. She did a whole like take on this that's kind of explored it and was like, I was kind of skeptical about this, but the more things are happening, the more it looks that way. I'm on the fence about whether that's true or whether he got merged. Like a dog and this other being got merged upon transport. Like when all the transportation, like maybe because I mean border collie,
Yeah.
dachshund, the fact that like he's like the whole jerky treats kind of thing, saying it was his friend, the whole like rubbing the person on the back whenever they needed comfort, like you would with a dog. I think maybe that it was either he was a dog or upon transport, like disappearing, maybe they merged somehow. So that could be there could be something to it. Anyway, we'll see how it plays out, but there's a lot of I don't know, shadiness with what's going on there, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's just a very guarded, don't really know the whole story type of thing. So
Right.
that's my take.
And
at least.
then my other thing, well, the whole backstory of his brother and stuff too, I think is suspicious in some ways. So it'll be interesting to see where his character goes and what we end up finding out about his backstory.
Yep, I agree. Well, let's keep it going because we got a couple of these to go through, so we're going to go quick through some of it. So, conflicted joy. Laudna warns Abedina to be careful not to become what she's despising. And Abedina, like you said, not proud of what happened, but sometimes things have to be done to move things forward for the betterment of the people. And Laudna kind of keeps saying, look, there's a thin line between being the savior of something and the oppressor of something. So you have to be really careful with this. And so they kind of are addressing it directly with her. She thanks them and says that they're going to scry after the night's rest. Denise informs them they'll be sleeping at Abedina's house, so they do. They're happy about what's going on in the village. The villagers are happy that they were able to kind of get the zealots out, so to speak, and everyone is celebrating. And then Orem is conflicted because he sees all the stuff's going on, but like, what did they really accomplish here other than like driving out, killing an angel and having this battle against the gods, really, that they are trying to stop when it comes to lewdness or not lewdness. So yeah, it's just a lot going on there. Prism thinks that all this was like a net good because this small group has been benefited, so they give the money to Abedina, and they basically are trying to give the money back that was tithed throughout all that time. And then they'll make sure they get it back to the villagers. Orem and Laudna talk. They kind of are on the same page, it seems. They're kind of like letting everybody have the win for now, but Orem is really struggling to put this together and to kind of come to terms with this. And Laudna just basically says, the best thing you can right now is just to focus on what you can control, which is trying to, really just focus on finding their friends. So, yeah, it got a little conflicting or conflicted at the end. Bless you, bless you.
Oh,
Um,
excuse me.
just with the way it played out, just they are a little conflicted with how they feel about the whole thing. So I don't know. What are
Well,
your
and
thoughts?
I think Orem even said through this whole time, he's never struggled with like true north, like his
Yeah,
being. He's never struggled against his nature, but the decisions that they made in the temple, he is feeling like he's like rudderless. He feels like he just doesn't know if they did the right thing, if they didn't do the right. Like he's so all over the place because to him, he's been working towards this ulterior goal of taking down lewdness, and lewdness's main goal is to kill the gods. And so I think he feels like they just put a strike in the column for lewdness versus taking one
yeah,
away. But they are right in the sense that this one thing in the overall, they didn't kill a god, so it's kind of what's the better good for these people, because these people don't know what's happening in the world. They could care less. They're
yeah,
ignorant of what's happening in the world. All they know is the oppression that they've had in their town. So in that sense, they did a good thing. So he's very conflicted, and I can understand. Orem has
I
always
can too.
been he's always been the one that's the least chaotic. He's always been the one that really has the idea of where he's going and what he's doing, but it's it's weighing heavy on him. So
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really showing like the true nature of some of these characters as they're coming through, and especially with the ones that used to be a little bit, um, you know, I don't know, chaotic themselves, are really kind of being pulled down to earth a little bit, so to speak, to really
yeah.
be, I don't know, like even Ashton, like he's even coming to grips with some stuff at this point. So,
Yeah.
right, so the elder is in. So the group head to Abedina's place. They welcome them and tell her to call her Joan. She appreciates what they did and opens up for questions. And if the soldiers return, the Valley Coalition is going to keep them safe, as other towns are going to rise up. So she doesn't know anything of Prodathos, but the spirits they worship are their neighbors. So she wants to kind of live and work with them symbiotically like they've been in the past, like it was before the gods found and sort of changed the world for their purposes. So there are a bunch of different eidolons across all of Exandria, and it's tied to the natural elements. And they've been there sort of originally. They were the ones that sculpted the world, and so Prodathos is sort of this entity that they weren't really aware of to begin with, but they have a track record of sort of um, taking things out and eating other gods, and like maybe they'll come for the Eidolons too. Who knows? Orem can't really wrangle with the other side. He's a widower. He lost loved ones in the fight. He's not going to really split hairs over this. He knows that lewdness is bad, basically, and he's going to take him down. Denise doesn't believe in the gods, just in what happens today, what happens tomorrow. And Bordor is still really upset about what was going on with the angel. Didn't seem evil. Denise kind of asks, what if there is no good or evil, but just a spectrum? And Joan kind of commends her on that wisdom. Yeah, so it's really interesting, like the way this goes. And as all this kind of talk is happening, Orm just leaves. Like he's kind of had enough with it. So yeah, it's let's. Do you want to keep going or
Yeah,
come
just
back
keep
over?
going. Yeah.
So they talk about the morality being innate, and when it's imposed, it becomes twisted. And maybe it's fate that things are changing. Ashton thought they were angry before, but now they really realize that they were just in pity of themselves. This now is really anger. This is his worst nightmare. his first time having divine interventions where the gods saw him and he was not invisible. And in his mind, they made it clear that Ashton is a mistake and that they don't care. He doesn't matter. Fuck the gods. He doesn't care about them. So, it was interesting to hear that take on it. That's where he's coming from. So, Laudna and Prism stay up reading all the religious texts that Prism stole. They find plans for further expansion into the valley and sort of all of these nexus points. So interesting connection with what happened with the other group, I think. Hearthdale is going to be the hub of magical interest for a long time, and as the nexus point, it won't move until the next apogee solstice. Prism also studies the Judicator runes, which comes into play later, which are protective and anti-magic, and she feels like it's her choice to leave home 10 years ago is now actually paying off. So lots of stuff there to digest.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't know if I was just absent or what, but I never really got the sense that Ashton was being singled out. I just didn't catch on to. I mean, I felt like the angel was castigating everyone, telling them they're all wrong.
Yeah.
And in this moment, you can see he's taken it super personal. That it's all him, like he's wrong, that he shouldn't exist, that he, so, and then he's realizing he's super angry. So that thread is gonna, however it pans out, I don't know, but it wasn't until he started saying that I was like, really? Okay. Maybe that's just how he perceived it.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like I had the same reaction initially too. Kind of thinking back on it though, like what we were talking about, you had elemental, angel, demon all in that same fight, and the one that helped him during the fight the most was the elemental throwing him, towards the angel. And so it was almost like, whether or not he had any direct conflict or whatever, maybe it was just that he felt his connection to the elements, like that is part of his nature or something. I don't know. But it's I'm interested to see how that plays out too.
And then Bordor is conflicted because he doesn't know if killing the angel was the right thing, because he didn't feel like it was evil in the end. He just felt like that's just what they were doing. They were killing it, and so he helped, just like a dog would.
and he sensed that they weren't bad, just like a dog would. Like, I think there's something to that.
So I don't know. Right? We'll see. Maybe there is something to
hats
it.
Might need to be, polished a little bit. We'll see. All right, so let's keep going. Ooh, more thunder. Yep. Stormlord agrees, I guess. So, all right. So, believe Bordor leaves and finds Orem up the tree, and he joins him on the boughs, and then asks Orem if he believes in God, and he responds that the gods are irrefutable. They've done irreparable damage and unmistakable good, but he doesn't really care. He just cares about his family. Bordor's own life is very small, with black and white beliefs, which again I think is a sign, because dogs see in black and white. They don't see color. And sadness and compassion. And then what did they have to? Why did they have to do that? He's just really kind of like, man, why did they have to do what they just did? Abedina doesn't really have a clue what the group's talking about. She's just like, they killed an angel and saved a woman who doesn't understand this fight, and they're like, what are they doing here? Orem says that if they can find their friends, then they might have a chance to stop more people from being killed. So Bordor's going to go where Orem goes. Then they head to the scry well. They finally get a chance to do the scrying. So when this happens, they kind of Ashton also asked Jonah if he knows anything about his head. It's a mystery, so they're still trying to figure that out. But she says that Ashton has a strong connection with the elements already. So there is that, and it coming from her, that says something. Orem places the box from Chetney into the well, and then the spell takes hold, and they see Deanna and Frida and Chetney and Imogen and Fern and FCG traveling through the snow because we were there, and so to speak, we see that as well. They recognize Kravarad, the volcano. They realize they're heading to Uthadurn. Imogen stops and looks back, and Laudna shouts her name, but obviously Imogen turns and keeps going. Bordor also needs to go to Kravarad, so hey, there's no need to scry on his brother, who is most likely
Who's
dead.
probably dead.
Yeah, interesting, right? So Denise hands over that clump of Dariax's hair. They see Dariax looking frazzled and concerned and sitting in a dark place. Sorry. As I'm speaking, apparently the AI assistant that is Apple's, because I don't want to say her name, started asking me something on my Mac. And it rhymes with
spooky.
It rhymes with Miri, and I didn't say anyway. So she started asking me questions, so that threw me off. Anyway, so Dariax is looking like frazzled, and he's cornered, and Dorian is there too, and he's looking a little worse for wear. So stuff is going on. Ashton and Laudna suddenly realize that Denise is connected to the group via Dariax and Dorian. Like revelation there. Bordor does decide to scry on his brother, but doesn't have anything that belongs to him, so he hands over his dagger, since that was from his home, but it's just the modest homestead, and they don't see Bordor's place. So then finally here we've got, with the scrying completed, they figure out how they're going to get to Uthadurn, so nobody can teleport them, but Joan says that her former mentor can. So Hevestro, Hierophant of the Emerald Tree, is a powerful archdruid. The group takes, if the group goes about 4 or 5 days to the north, they'll find the shrine there that is embedded in rock, and Hevestro guards the shrine. So this is where they're trying to go to see if they can travel to where they got to go. So they're like, hey, should we travel to Hevestro or Vasselheim? So they decide to go find Hevestro. Joan summons this really cool Eidolon guide that takes the form of this wind cougar. And then the group leaves to head that way. And yeah, so that's how things are, they got this cool wind cat. And that's how things are ending for this period. So yeah, how'd you think at the end of this episode? How do you think played out so far?
Well, I found it interesting that they spent so long trying to decide where they were going to go. And I was like, you just killed an angel from the Dawnfather. You can't go to Vasselheim. I mean, hello. Right. Yeah. That should not have even been an option. We don't even need to talk about it. You go find the elemental druid. We don't even need to ask. Geez. So I was very glad that the group finally came to the conclusion that they needed to go and find Hevestro versus try to go to Vasselheim. Yeah. I think that the cougar's super cool. Of course, tons of cougar jokes have ensued, and now they're calling out all kinds of cougar names every time the cougar is mentioned. So, they're having fun with it. Bordor has nothing from his home. He has nothing to show his brother. He didn't even really want to scry on his brother, but the group really pressured him into it. Like, they kept pestering him until he was finally like, okay, fine. And all he had was the dagger that wasn't really... Sorry, the rain just started. Yep. All he had was a dagger that showed them a homestead that he didn't even know where it was. Probably the blacksmith or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
So that is... very suspicious.
It is, and it's again, we'll see how it plays out, but a little bit more information in the next episode. So let's jump in there, shall we? So episode 62, A Long Walk of Reflection. So this is really kind of interesting because they really are traveling for quite a bit during this. So I'll take the first couple of these before we head over to chat. So they're heading to the mountains, as we just mentioned. They've got that air cougar that's, guiding them along the way. And then they're trying to get Bordor to practice his powers because he says that they only really came out recently, and when he's scared is when he's really effective. So they eventually rest, and Ashton asks Orem to teach him how to meditate, and he does. And Ashton's been thinking about the Hishari, and where their life has led them. And Orem asks that the best thing, or Orem says that the best thing they can do right now is to pick each other up when they fall and just keep things moving. They settle into the evening with Denise hunting, Bordor foraging berries, and Orem giving Ashton a message for, or a massage for their pain, not a message. A massage. So that was interesting because of all the pain that Ashton has. That was kind of a nice gesture there. So Prism carves, this is really cool too, one of the Judicator runes into Bordor's crossbow, and kind of it was analyzing what does it do and trying to figure stuff out, and it seems like it stores spells. So she's able to put Dragon's Breath into the rune, and then when the crossbow fires, it kind of like has this flame burst effect, which can only be used once, but the runes are kind of effective, so she can use the runes to store spells, basically, it seems like. And they set up this dummy for Bordor to practice on. He casts Firebolt, setting the dummy on fire, and then he casts Calm Emotions on the group so that they can all sleep and meditate. And then he cuddles up with the Wind Cougar. And then Ashton takes first watch while attempting his meditation and is able to focus, and he senses the presence of the earth and the spirits and moving around. So having a big effect on Ashton there so far.
Yeah.
As they keep going, they are sort of moving along the way. They discover this overgrown crater in the ground. And this is really interesting because they find a petrified humanoid skeleton embedded into the stone. And Ashton is able to kind of like use his meld with stone abilities and step into the rock, and then he and Denise, because she's got that stone chisel, and they kind of free the skeleton's head, which is elongated. So Prism casts Identify, and it's the skeleton of Gessere. And so the Gessere are from the astral sea. So basically, here's another creature from beyond, from space, closer to where that moon is, right? And they're in the impact crater, basically, where the body was fused with the stone. So maybe seemingly it was sent here as a punishment. We'll see. There's only one item, which is the hematite ring. Ashton takes the ring. It's a ring of volcanic flesh that allows the wearer to reduce fire damage and attack with fire damage as well. And then they keep going. Pate finds a place to rest for him, and then Dinios encourages Prism to be more sassy, be more assertive, be confident as a wizard. And then Ashton and Prism share a pipe together. The magic pipe causes the smoke to reenact her most impressive achievement, and that was when a mage visited the Shadow Realm, and she made herself indispensable to him, and then invited back to Cobalt Soul. So this was basically how she got there, almost, allowing her to kind of leave the shadows and go from there. And saying, Laudna talks to her and says that Prism's mother would be proud of her, and she hopes that one day she could see her mother again. So lots going on there. So we got the journey, and then sort of the camp stuff that's going on. So
Yeah.
what's your take?
I think it's funny that they keep coming up with dummies, dead bodies, dummies.
Yeah.
I don't like it. But I think it's good that in between the battles, Bordor is practicing, because he has only ever produced, I guess, his spells when he's scared, for the most part, I think. And
Would
then,
you say they're training him?
They are. And then they find this super cool skeleton dude out in a crater that's grown over with, all kinds of plants and things. And I think Laudna casts Wither and Bloom, so then everything dies right away.
Yeah.
And then the only thing that's left is the skeleton. And so they're able to pry a little bit of it up, figure out what it is. And then they find this ring, which is super cool. It seems like it would really benefit the other group maybe a little bit better, since they were in a volcanic area.
Oh, that's
true. But
yeah.
it makes, I always wonder when magical items appear in game, if that's like foreshadowing for something that's going to happen. Like what's the point in getting a super cool item if you're not actually going to be able to use it? So
Yeah, yeah. Well, and who, if anybody, did he really have that in mind for? And I have a feeling that they gave it to the right person. If not that there's a right person, it's a game, you can do whatever you want to, but I feel as like there's a connection there with the elemental type stuff.
Oh,
With
yeah, I
Ashton.
agree.
Yeah.
Well, and I think earlier in one of the other episodes, maybe it was Abadina that asked him if he had tried to talk to the stone. And he's like, tried to talk to the stone, which is why he has been trying to learn how to meditate, because he's trying to connect with himself. And I think the Hashari people were elemental, like worshipers, though, right? They were like super far in the past, not a lot is known
Yeah.
about them. So there's a high possibility that they weren't worshiping one of the more modern gods, I guess, and maybe they were more of an elemental people.
Yeah.
Which might be why he's taken on the look of like stone and stuff, as he's, because
So
he made mention that he didn't always look that way.
let me ask you, what are your thoughts on? Is it possible that Ashton doesn't remember, but he's also like maybe he arrived here the same way that this being did, and
I
that
mean, it's,
because everybody has
yeah,
this Ruidus connection. Wouldn't it be great if like the beings were sent from Ruidus and landed, like he crash landed here, like if he was exiled from wherever, maybe because we saw that there's some kind of civilization, or at least we think there are, living on Ruidus. So
right.
maybe he's originally from there, like, and doesn't know that that's where he's from.
Yeah, or there's a time component, because I feel like when he had all those motes of possibility and they went into his brain, and I feel like there was this whole scene where the people were walking into a portal, and then it was
Hmm.
blank. He was a kid, and then after that everything was blank, and he doesn't remember what happened to him. So part of me almost wonders if something was happening like to their civilization, they had to flee. Maybe they entered this portal, but maybe most of them didn't make it, or he got separated and flung somewhere else. Maybe it was another apogee solstice at some point, and
But
I
what if their
mean,
civilization was on Ruidus and the
yeah,
portal is what brought them here?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know, because they have all that, like that museum had all of the headrests and all of the clothes and stuff that
Yeah,
he
true,
took. So it
true.
seems to me like it would be something so far in the past that there's just not a lot of information about it.
Like he is
But
Hashari. Like, yeah,
yeah, yeah, because the
that's interesting.
headrest was Hashari, and he felt a connection to it, and then he saw his father wearing it, and
And
that
that's
blipped back.
where the Ashari sprung off from that, right? We think.
Yes, yeah,
And so if that's the case, then the Hashari may be pre-calamity,
yeah.
right? Um, interesting. That's an interesting theory. I have to go back and check that. That's
So
the
I
best one
almost
I've heard so
wonder
far.
if he got flung forward, or if he was
Yeah,
like FCG, where he just has been living a really long time, and whole parts of his memory is gone, because we already have seen he struggles with that anyways, just with the stuff that's been tinkered with the motes of like the potion poured into his head and things
yeah,
like that. Or who
yeah.
knows, even if his memories, the things that do come out, if they're even real, or if it was something that could have been because of the
That's
dudamancy. So I don't know.
no,
But
that's a
I like he mentioned a couple times in the last episode or two that he's going to now be asking them to follow up in his backstory. So we'll get more Ashton info hopefully
I
in the
hope so.
next
Yeah,
little while. So because he sounds like he's got a really cool backstory.
I think so too. I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And usually it seems like his backstory has something to do with the overall plot, like of
Yeah.
what's going on. It happened with campaign 1, with the Briarwoods. It happened with what's going on in campaign 2, basically changed because of his first character. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, spirits and magic. So Orem takes the first watch, notices glowing eyes on the horizon, but they're oddly comforting and gentle. So it's sort of like the eidolons, that these spirits that are sort of watching. They have a good third day of travel. Bordor asks Laudna about Imogen, and she explains that they have a special friendship, and Imogen saved her, and Laudna saved Imogen. So Laudna just hopes that she's okay, and Imogen is Ruidus born. So they kind of talk about that. She's not evil. She's just, which that's just a superstition, really. And Orem encourages the others to split off before they find their friends because they're heading back into the thick of danger. And Denise wants to find Dariax, and Prism is up for saving the world. So hey, she's finally let loose, so she's ready for it. They encourage Bordor to have Prism scry on his brother now that because she copied the scroll, or she had the scroll, so
Yeah.
that was one of the things they got in the last episode. Denise jokes that maybe Bordor doesn't have a brother, and Prism scries using a mirror that Joan gave her, and then sees an empty wooden cabin. And Bordor explains that the cabin is where his brother stays, but no one is there. Bordor is extremely confused. Again, could be that brother is a dog, like a brother dog, right? Like this is, he stays in the cabin, but who knows? Anyway,
Or a sick human.
Sorry.
Or a sick human.
It could be that too, but I'm just saying, like, we don't know if he is a dog, it could be that it's another puppy from the same litter, right? Like, we don't know. Tomorrow they'll reach the mountain. Maybe Vestra can help. Prism attempts to destroy Ludinus, but he is protected from that, so didn't really work there. So goals and strengths. Bordor asks Laudna, Orem, and Ashton if they really think they're strong enough to kill a god killer. And they say, look, that's not really the goal. Ludinus has been planning this forever, really, and they crashed a ship onto the Malleus Key. They're hoping that they kind of kept things at bay a little bit. Bordor asks if they're trying to stop a god or a man whose followers believe in him, and Ashton wants to stop Ludinus. Not because of the goals, but just because... really of who Ludinus is, and it's not who Ashton wants to be leading if everything else falls apart. So they wonder if they should accept that Exandria needs to change, and but they shouldn't allow it to get worse. And Bordor asks if they're tired of fighting. Maybe they should just find their friends and leave. And Laudna thinks they know too much now. They have to do something. It's not something they can just forget. Ashton can't walk away either. He needs to, there has to be something to all this. And Bordor doesn't know if they're strong enough to do any of this, and can't promise that he'll be with them at the end. Denise is pro-retirement, but Prism feels like, man, this is the experience she wants. She wants to go make a difference. Orem wants to get back to their people and get rid of Ludinus. Deities don't matter, but Ludinus has got to go. This, again, he's focused on, this is the person causing the problems. We got to take care of him. They have the pipe deal with Bordor, and kind of cool is that his most impressive achievement is what happened like a few hours ago. It's the firebolt against the dummy, which says something, right? It's and he's finally feeling as if he belongs there. Meanwhile, Orem prays to the Wild Mother, and he can't discount the gods that are good and what they've done that is good for everyone, and asks if she can spare a miracle. They could use some help down there. So, yeah. Thoughts?
Well, so what I was saying about Bordor's situation, scrying on the empty cabin, is maybe it's not really his real brother. Maybe it's his human brother, because he's the dog, and
Right.
he views him as his family type thing, and maybe he can be dead. He could have gone for help. He could, there's really an endless possibility on why he wasn't in the cabin, but it seemed like it really was confusing to Bordor that he wasn't there, because it comes across like he's really, really ill and can't go. So who knows? I do think it's interesting that his biggest accomplishment was just the other day, like the day before. So that makes me wonder if there was no before, if he didn't think in those manners,
Right.
in that way. He didn't have that consciousness that maybe he has now. And so therefore this is his best achievement to date.
It's a really great, but what it kind of reminds me of, it's more of a comedic take on it, especially the way it's being played, just because they're all really funny. But and spoilers for this if you haven't read it, but there is a book series I'm a big fan of called The Dresden Files, and there's a particular book, second one in the series, called Full Moon, and in that book there are some werewolves, and there's several different types and packs of werewolves, and not a huge reveal, but I will say that one of the mentors of the werewolves is this woman, and she's kind of been mentoring this pack of werewolves. And the wolves in this are humans that just turn into a wolf. They're not like the hybrid forms that you might see, like with Chetney. And what you find that's revealed is this woman, when it's all said and done, leaves and goes off into the woods. And then main character kind of says, I never thought, she was so amazing at what she was, being a wolf. She really knew what she was doing, and it didn't occur to the main character that she was a wolf that was turning into a human. And that's why she was so good at trying to teach these other how to be like a wolf, these humans trying to be like a wolf. And it really kind of, like, a lot of the things, it kind of harkens back to that to me, like how, like, it's almost like if you're Chetney, here's Chetney, who is this humanoid person that turns into this wolf-like creature. I wonder if he was there, if he would smell something or sense something about him. You know what I mean? Like, it kind of
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's sort of almost like it's the opposite of the werewolf effect, where it's, you're turned into this, and what happens to you as a human, you gain the intellect, you gain like the things that make you human, but you still retain some of that in a similar way that Chetney turns, and he's got this need, this hunger, this other stuff of the
Right.
wolf. So I feel like there's a correlation there, but who knows? So yeah. All right. Well, that's enough of that. Let me get back over to this. So we're doing pretty good. Shadow and Stone, Spirits of Magic. All right, Verdant Tomb. I'm gonna scroll a little bit just to see where we got to go, so that we have. Yep, we're good. We're gonna cover the last two here, and then we'll have time. So Verdant Tomb, on the fourth day of travel, they come upon this canyon. The Wind Cougar leads them down the slope, and then Orm kind of glides down using an enlarged Mother the Raven. He kind of like hang glides down. It's kind of a funny thing. And then the others leap down with Featherfall. Cougar leads them along the bank of the river. They come upon the waterfall, Mossy Hill, and then the opening in the cavern. And they see bright blue bushes and an oasis patch. Prism senses something off, so Pate scouts and kind of informs them that, hey, the flowers are illusory. So she was trying to get them to fly right through. It was really fun. And then also inspects the crack in the wall, and that the entrance has writing on it in Primordial. So they avoid the hill, and it seems to be breathing. Interesting enough. They follow the cougar into the cavern entrance. Ashton reads the Primordial. It says, "Within the verdant tomb, we keep her spirit enduring." And the Wind Cougar dissipates. And they notice veins of prismatic crystals in the cavern wall. And Bordor pries one out, and Prism casts Ray of Frost into it, and it refracts in a bunch of different directions. The damage is lessened, but it's separated into all these different rays. So Denise could take more of the crystals with her stone cutting tools, but she's uncomfortable stealing from this place. So while they're in this cavern, the central chamber is sort of branching out into all these different tunnels. There is furniture and living quarters, but there's no sign of recent life. So while Denise and Prism are kind of hitting Bordor with all these random questions, getting him to reveal that his brother's name is Jesper, they remove deeper into the cave, or the cavern, that is, and then they find a massive set of stone steps that lead to a glowing green obelisk. And it's sort of like this big crystal that's pointed right there, and there's a shade toward its center, like an empty space or the outline of a body. They see ritual markers on the walls, the glyphs, the runes that channel them. Like, again, this made me think of Ashton being maybe imprisoned in something, and that's why his body. Anyway, the room is a shrine that was prepared for an event, possibly the solstice. Ashton realizes that the green stone looks a lot like residuum, but residuum is processed, and this is sort of a natural form. It's likely the emerald tree that Hevestra watches over. Orem looks up and he spots a face on the ceiling, smiling down at him, and that's where they end it. So let's chat, shall we?
Yes.
Yeah. What do you think?
So I didn't really know what to expect whenever Abedina was sending them to find Hevestro. I really didn't think that they would find a place that was habitable, really.
Yeah.
Like living quarters, sleeping space. Because I think it had just been being called like the shrine, and so I wasn't thinking about the shrine also being somewhere where people would live or sleep or whatever. I just thought of it being maybe just a crystal or something.
Sure.
But it makes sense that if this archdruid is living out there, or that's it, their main place, that there would be some way for them, some place for them to live too. So part of me wonders if, the smiling face that they see in the stone is her, maybe shaped into the rock or something. And then it's really crazy that it's like all this raw crystal-like residuum that's just sitting there. So and what we know about residuum is that it is like the decomposed essence of a god that fell during the calamity or something along those lines. So it's going to be a place of power, and I'm hoping, we don't really exactly know what Hevestro can do for them, but I'm hoping that she can give them, I think it's a she, right? Or they can give them answers on how to get back with the group.
I think so too. And it's like just, understanding more about what's going on at that level. And I think, again, we're finding more about the primordial aspects of what's going on with the world. A lot of times everybody knows about what's going on with the gods. And we've even throughout the campaigns, we've heard more about the gods' perspective, but never really too much from the beings that were there before. Right. And so, right. It's, that's not to say that we haven't had experience with other druids and stuff, but it seems unique here with the way that this is kind of playing out. And I also find it really cool that it's tying together all of these different places of power, like Whitestone, which is right now I feel is like the most important place that has shown up in any of the campaigns, just by the sheer impact of everything that's happened there.
Yeah.
But then we've got places like this that are still around, so it's almost like we're getting to see a little bit more, because they haven't really had any campaigns in this area. This is the first time venturing into this part, right? Like, if I remember right, I don't think they've been here, right? So it's just interesting to find out all these new sort of exploration type things.
And wasn't the ziggurat already underneath Whitestone?
Yeah, like,
and
it was
she
there.
Found it. Yeah,
So the Briarwoods found it there. Yeah,
it could totally be, its primordial place of power, because it's a temple. So, it definitely all ties together. And then there's so many origins of characters from that area as well. So
it's at least, even if it's not the same group, it's at least, it seems like from the same era, the same timeline, like where all the things are happening now, across the world. Like, there's different factions that are existing right now, and because it's all contemporary, you think of them in one way, but like if you think back thousands of years ago, they all had contemporaries too. So like there was the people that were maybe in that temple beneath Whitestone. Right. You've got the thing here,
right?
yeah, it's really interesting to see how all that kind of is going to play out. So I'm excited.
It
We'll see
just
how it
makes me
turns out.
definitely think we haven't seen the last of Delilah.
I think so too. It keeps popping up in my brain. It's like, what's going to happen when she, comes back up? And then also, like, um, is it possible that we haven't seen the last of um, other beings from campaign 2, like, or other plot lines that we didn't like? I don't know. Like, there's lewdness, and the whole nonagon thing is connected as much as lewdness is also connected with Delilah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different like through lines to all this stuff. So I'm just really interested to see how it all plays out and where it's going to go. But
Well, and I mean, they need to rescue Vaxeldan or something, right? Like now he's
yeah,
in this prism ball, not a prism, but like this lens of a ball compressed down into this little thing,
well,
So
it,
that's
it's funny
what do
though,
you
like that the
do?
players want to do it, but like the characters is not their priority. Like,
Right.
you know, poor Liam's got to watch all of his characters be like in that one spot, and then like, he had Caleb, Vax, and Orem in the same thing that they could have all gone at the same time. Like, ugh.
Well, Bo, so did Marisha.
Oh, that's
Bo
true.
was
Yeah,
there.
Marisha
Helith was
too. Yeah,
there. Yeah, Laudna was there. I
yeah.
know. So many convergences of it's overlaying.
Yes.
So
Well, we've got 4 minutes until showtime, so thanks everybody for hanging with us and watching. And please make sure you subscribe, comment below. If you didn't get a chance to join us live, I know it's a different night than we normally do, but add your thoughts in the comments below. Give us your opinions and your theories and your wild tinfoil hat musings, and let us know what you think.
do
So
you think Bordor is a dog?
yeah, are you on team Bordor, the Bordor collie? Like, are you like, what's going on with him?
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll all be watching because it's Thursday. So
Yes.
you guys have a great night, and we will catch you next time.